Karen spent the next morning pacing her living room like a caged tiger, her phone pressed to her ear as she spoke to the HOA's legal counsel. What do you mean, technically legal? Nothing about this situation is technical. It's chaos. Mrs. Whitmore, came the tired voice of Attorney Davidson, the Thompsons are within their rights. Unless you can prove the pool parties are causing actual property damage or violating noise ordinances during non-permitted hours, our hands are tied. Karen hung up and stared out her window at the scene unfolding across the street. The Thompsons had somehow managed to organize the entire neighborhood. There were actual poolside umbrellas now. Someone had brought a snack table. Mrs. Chen was teaching water aerobics to a group of enthusiastic Labradors. Her doorbell rang, and Karen opened it to find Princess Buttercup sitting politely on her doormat, still wearing the life jacket, with a note tied to her collar. Karen. The note read in Mrs. Thompson's annoyingly neat handwriting. Princess seems to have appointed herself as our volunteer lifeguard. She's been keeping all the other dogs safe and even learned to fetch pool toys on command. We'd like to make her an honorary member of our new Willowbrook Aquatic Club. Membership includes daily swimming privileges and unlimited belly rubs. Please advise. Your neighbors. Karen looked down at Princess Buttercup, who gazed back with the kind of innocent expression that suggested she had no idea she'd just committed the ultimate act of treason. You've got to be kidding me, Karen muttered, but as she knelt down to remove the life jacket, she noticed something else attached to Princess's collar, a tiny waterproof badge that read Chief Safety Officer. That's when Karen realized she'd been outmaneuvered by her own dog. The phone rang again. Karen, it's Margaret. Have you seen the neighborhood Facebook page? The Thompsons' pool party made the local news. They're calling it the most heartwarming community story of the year. Karen's hands trembled as she pulled up the Facebook page on her phone. There, in full color glory, was a photo of Princess Buttercup standing proudly at the edge of the pool, surrounded by happy families and their pets. The caption read, "Local HOA president's dog brings neighborhood together through the healing power of swimming." They've made me look like the villain, Karen whispered, scrolling through comment after comment praising the Thompson family's community spirit and wondering why some people couldn't just let their neighbors enjoy life. But then she saw something that made her pause. Hidden in the corner of one photo was a detail that changed everything, a small, official-looking document partially visible on the Thompsons' patio table. Even from the grainy Facebook photo, Karen could make out two crucial words: pool permit. Her heart began to race. She grabbed her emergency HOA kit and marched outside, purpose renewed in her step, because if there was one thing Karen Whitmore knew better than HOA regulations, it was that no permit was ever filed correctly on the first try. As she approached the Thompson property, Princess Buttercup spotted her and began barking excitedly. Not the usual refined bark of a show dog, but the enthusiastic yapping of a pet who'd found her calling. The sound drew the attention of every person and dog in the yard, and suddenly Karen found herself facing an audience of at least 20 neighbors, all of whom were staring at her with expressions ranging from curious to openly hostile. "I need to see your permits," Karen announced, her voice somehow managing to carry authority despite the fact that her own dog was currently undermining her from the pool deck. "All of them." Mr. Thompson smiled, but it wasn't the friendly expression he'd worn during their previous encounters. "I was wondering when you'd ask about that, Karen. Come on in. I think you're going to find our paperwork very interesting." As Karen stepped through the gate, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into a trap. But what choice did she have? Her reputation, her authority, and her position as neighborhood watchdog were all on the line. Behind her, Princess Buttercup's tail wagged harder, as if sensing that the real game was just beginning. Karen Whitmore's pristine white Lexus screeched to a halt in front of 412 Maple Grove Lane, her perfectly manicured nails gripping the steering wheel as she stared in absolute horror at what could only be described as a neighborhood apocalypse. The Thompson family had committed the ultimate HOA sin. They'd covered their pool with a bright blue top that clashed magnificently with the heritage beige color palette mandated by Section 4.7 of the Willowbrook Estates Community Guidelines. "Absolutely not," Karen muttered, her voice rising to a pitch that could shatter crystal. She fumbled for her phone, speed dialing the HOA emergency hotline she'd personally installed after the Great Mailbox incident of 2023. "This is Karen Whitmore, HOA board president. I need an immediate violation notice, drafted for 412 Maple Grove. Code blue situation." But as she stepped out of her vehicle, her designer heels clicking against the pavement with military precision, something else caught her eye that made her blood pressure spike to dangerous levels. Through the gaps in the Thompsons' fence, she could see it. Children actually swimming in the pool. During designated quiet hours, no less. The third shock came when her own perfectly groomed golden retriever, Princess Buttercup, suddenly bolted from the car and made a beeline straight for the Thompsons' yard. Karen watched in slow-motion horror as her prized show dog, who'd never so much as stepped on unmowed grass, launched herself over the 3-foot fence like an Olympic hurdler and landed with a tremendous splash in the middle of the Thompson family pool party. "Princess!" Karen shrieked, her voice cracking like a teenage boy's. The entire neighborhood seemed to freeze. Birds stopped chirping. Lawnmowers fell silent. Even the ice cream truck appeared to slow down. 8-year-old Tommy Thompson's jaw dropped as he watched the soaking wet dog paddle around like she owned the place. "Mom, there's a fancy dog in our pool." "That's not just any dog," Mrs. Thompson said, appearing at the sliding door with a knowing smirk. "That's Karen's dog." Karen stood paralyzed at the fence line, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Princess Buttercup, meanwhile, had discovered the joy of pool noodles and was currently engaged in what could only be described as aquatic combat with an inflatable unicorn. This is a clear violation of pet containment regulations," Karen stammered, though her authority seemed somewhat diminished by the fact that her own pet was now the primary violator. "Want to come get her?" Mr. Thompson called out, gesturing toward the pool gate. "Gates open." Karen's eye twitched. Walking through that gate would mean officially entering property that was currently in violation of at least 7 HOA codes. But leaving Princess Buttercup meant abandoning her position as the neighborhood's moral authority. As she stood frozen in her bureaucratic dilemma, Princess Buttercup made the decision for her. The dog paddled to the pool's edge, shook herself off with gusto, and promptly began digging enthusiastically in the Thompsons' prize-winning rose garden. "Oh no," Karen whispered, watching her carefully cultivated reputation crumble along with the Thompsons' landscaping. 3 hours later, Karen sat in her home office, surrounded by HOA binders color-coded with the precision of a military operation. Her laptop displayed a spreadsheet titled Thompson Violations, Evidence Log, which had grown to an impressive 47 entries since the pool incident. She'd even created a subcategory for Princess Buttercup-related infractions. The phone rang, and Karen's perfectly practiced HOA voice activated. "Willowbrook Estates Community Association, Karen speaking. How may I direct your concern today?" "Karen, it's Margaret from down the street. I heard about what happened at the Thompsons. Is it true your dog destroyed their entire garden?" Karen's left eye began its telltale twitch. Princess Buttercup was merely investigating potential landscaping violations. The Thompsons' roses were clearly exceeding the maximum height restrictions outlined in Karen. The dog dug a hole the size of a hot tub. Silence stretched between them like a taut rubber band. Through her window, Karen could see a small crowd gathering around the Thompson property. Mrs. Chen was taking photos. The Rodriguez family had brought lawn chairs. Even Old Man Peterson had emerged from his house for the first time since Easter. "I need to go," Karen said, hanging up before Margaret could respond. She grabbed her emergency HOA enforcement kit, complete with measuring tape, pH testing strips, and a decibel meter, and marched back outside. But as she approached the Thompson property, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. A handwritten sign had appeared on their fence: "Pool party. Everyone welcome, especially dogs." "They wouldn't dare," Karen whispered, but even as the words left her mouth, she saw the Patel family's Labrador charging toward the open gate, followed closely by the Johnsons' twin beagles. By the time Karen reached the fence, the Thompsons' backyard had transformed into what could only be described as a canine water park. 7 dogs of various sizes were splashing, playing, and having the time of their lives while their owners chatted and laughed around the pool deck. "Excuse me," Karen called out, her voice cutting through the cheerful chaos. "This is a clear violation of noise ordinances, pet regulations, and," she paused, frantically flipping through her HOA handbook, "unauthorized community gatherings." Mrs. Thompson looked up from where she was serving lemonade to the other parents. "Oh, hi Karen. Thanks for letting Princess Buttercup show everyone how fun the pool could be. Would you like some lemonade?" Karen felt something snap inside her chest. "This ends now. I'm calling an emergency HOA meeting." "That's your right," Mr. Thompson said calmly, toweling off a happy golden retriever that definitely wasn't Princess Buttercup. "But I should mention, we checked the covenants. Turns out there's nothing in there about dogs using pools, just humans." Karen's handbook slipped from her suddenly sweaty palms. That's impossible. I wrote those regulations myself." Page 247, subsection J. Mrs. Thompson added helpfully, "Pet restrictions only apply to terrestrial activities. Swimming appears to be a loophole." As Karen bent to retrieve her fallen handbook, she noticed something that made her stomach drop. Princess Buttercup was sitting beside the pool, perfectly dry and groomed, wearing what appeared to be a tiny life jacket with "Pool Patrol" embroidered on the side. The betrayal was complete.